Before we go any further, just want to thank all the people over on Patreon, because without their help, none of this upgraded content that you be seeing would be possible. Over on the Patreon, you get exclusive sneak peeks at upcoming videos. You also get access to the Patreon only Discord server. Coming up soon, I'm going to be working on talking about other anime that I can't talk about here on YouTube, like say ReZero, Konosuba, and etc. I'm also going to start posting the scripts for video essays, and every 3 months we do an anime and manga haul. We also are going to open up the Patreon only Discord server to YouTube members at the $2 price tier, which also means that members will be seeing their name here alongside the patron. But with that being said, let's get back into today's video. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another review for Boruto Naruto Next Generations Chapter 72. And now that Chapter 72 is done and in the books, we got a lot to talk about. Now that we have full context behind the chapter, a lot of the stuff that we talked about in the spoiler discussions prior to this review, a lot of this makes a lot more sense now. So jumping right into it, I gotta say, I like the fact that this chapter basically picks up a little bit after the last chapter. So this was a smart decision to start the chapter inside of Konoha. We have Kawaki talking to Shikamaru. He's saying that I don't know anything. Amado just gave me my karma seal back without my permission. I don't know what he was trying to do. Shikamaru says that I think he has another motive. I don't think he was doing this just to help you out. And Kawaki jumps right to the chase and he says, well, the good thing about all this is that Amado's dead. We don't have to worry about him no more. And really and truly, Shikamaru, you're glad that he's dead because you don't have to second guess and deal with this shifty bastard yourself. And when Shikamaru gets upset, Kawaki, he begins talking a lot of trash. He says, you're worthless and you're upset. That's a hell of a combination right there. And Naruto's trying to put his foot down because right now Naruto's seeing that change in Kawaki. And I like that because, again, like I talked about earlier, this really gives off the impression that Kawaki's becoming more like an Otsutsuki. We've seen the fact that he's very disrespectful and very blunt and to the point, but what we're seeing right now is that he knows I'm the strongest guy in the village. There's nobody who can oppose me. What are these people going to do? I'm going to talk however I want to talk and I'm going to impose my will. The only thing I care about is Naruto. And so I like that Naruto is drawn with a very angry face when he's telling Kawaki that's enough. And when Shikamaru learns right after that Amado is calling him, Shikamaru in that moment is completely stunned because it's a miscalculation on his part. And when Shikamaru begins talking to Amado, he basically tells him, I have a lot of questions for you. And Amado fills him in. He says that we're at a train station right now. It's going to take us 3 to 4 days in order to get back to Konoha, which it really puts into perspective how fast Sasuke is, because Sasuke left the Hidden Leaf Village, got to the Land of Snow, was able to do his investigation, and then get back within a day. Like, that's absolutely insane how fast Sasuke traveled. But again, this is Sasuke and they're taking a train for civilians, so that makes sense. But what I like right here is that Amado, when he fills him in, he says like, hey, I've already checked for claw marks. I don't have any on me. There's none at this train station and everything. I'm not gonna fall for a trick like you did. And that's some backdoor shade that Amado is throwing at Shikamaru. And I like that little jab right there because it just continues to show us the fact that Amado and Shikamaru, they're eternally in that game of chess right now. So I like that. And I have to say, the panel where Amado says, I'm not going to fall for the same tricks as you, if you look at the backgrounds on that, you really see where Ikimoto's strengths are, because that background is absolutely beautiful. I like the detail that you see on, like, say, the columns, and you see like the little scratch marks and everything on the walls. Very well detailed. That whole panel is going to be a bitch for animation, especially when you look at how detailed the clothes are in terms of the ruffles on the feathers, and you look at Ada's hair, and you look at the backgrounds. Usually when they animate that stuff, they actually tone down some of Ikimoto's work. So I think that that was a very beautiful shot. That's one of my favorites out the entire chapter. Now, the other thing I like here is that Amado tells Shikamaru, like, hey, Ada has cut all ties with Code. We don't need to worry about her being a problem right now. And the reason why she did so is because I talked her into joining Konoha. And when Shikamaru gets mad and says, like, wait a second, you offered her and her little brother residency in Konoha, you have no authority to make such a offer. Well, what Shikamaru gets told by Amado is that, hey, I don't have that authority. You're absolutely right, but you don't have the authority to offer to them as well. And that kind of goes back to the fact that Naruto is a Hokage. Naruto is the one that has to sign off on that. And what Shikamaru decides to do is he decides to let Amado keep talking. And when Amado hears that silence from Shikamaru, he presses his leverage even further and he tells him, I don't have authority, you don't have authority, but let's make one thing clear. You don't want to make these siblings your enemies. You can trust me on that. And while I did have to take Code's limiters off because he was going to kill me otherwise, think of it like this. Code might be stronger right now, but he does not have Ada there to fill him in on everybody's movements. That's actually a crippling blow to his battle strength. So think of it like a net positive. Konoha's about to be a lot better now. Shikamaru reinforces the fact that he has more questions, and when Amado tells him, hey, you're good with game pieces right now, how about you figure all this out? That's what you're good at. Ada hears this and she steps right to Amado and she says, essentially, I don't like being referred to as a game piece, which I like this because it does two things. It shows that Amado's still thinking of ways to manipulate the situation, and Ada at the end of the day is a piece for whatever ulterior motive he has. But also you have this moment where Ada's letting him know, like, look, whatever it is that you're planning to do, you're not going to outsmart me because I'm already on to you. It's just a matter of respect. It's just a matter of maintaining the position of power in that relationship, because being referred to as a piece means that you can be referred to as a pawn that can be disposed of. So I like what Ada's doing right here, is letting him know, like, look, the only reason why you're still alive right now and why I haven't killed you is because you're supposed to hold up your end of the bargain to get me and Kawaki together. And Ada tells him, if you fail to do so, and if you fail to give your best effort, and if you fail to accomplish this, you're gonna die. And Damon chimes in, and Damon's ready for the smoke. He's like, look, make no mistake, I'll be the one that actually kills you. My sister's not gonna be the one that's gonna do it. Now, we then get a moment where it shifts over and Shikamaru begins making phone calls and he says, I need Naruto to come to the Hokage office, which that was kind of like a backdoor moment where it's like Shikamaru's like, summon Naruto to the Hokage office, not summon Naruto to Naruto's office or summon to the Hokage office. I get why that was worded like that, but that's still kind of funny that like Shikamaru is summoning Naruto to his own office, and then he then goes on to say, go ahead and summon Kawaki and Team 7 here as well. Now, the scene then shifts over and we have Boruto getting ready, and Boruto touches his karma seal that's now spread to his chest. Looks like there's some resonation going on right here, and when Boruto's getting ready, Hinata steps out and she says, like, I heard you got a mission, and Boruto's all pumped up for it, but Hinata, in a very good use of paneling, I like the build up towards this. Ikimoto slowed down the scene a little bit more. You see the tears coming out of Hinata's eyes, and then you see her trying to wipe it away, and as she begins to start covering up her face, another tear slips out. That's actually a good use of paneling there to kind of live in this moment a little bit more. And Hinata basically says something that she says in the light novels, in particular the Parent and Child Day novel, where one of her darkest fears is that her son will never return home from a mission. And as Hinata's saying this, Himawari's watching from the background. Himawari kind of shows what she does in the anime, which is she's listening, but she's doing so without being caught. And Boruto tells Hinata, like, hey, I've already died once. I'm gonna come back. Don't worry about it. I'll come back home. I promise you. And again, we see Kimoto slow down the panels a little bit more, because when he says, I promise, we see Hinata, her eyes are shaded out. They're not shown. That's a nice workaround to, again, the issue with his eyes and the struggles with those expressions. But that's actually very nice right there, because sometimes less is more. And when you get Hinata telling Boruto to be careful, when Boruto closes the door and steps out, that's when you start seeing all those smoke lines that are coming, and Boruto turns around. He sees Momoshiki, and Momoshiki stares back at Boruto and he says, you're making a promise that you're going to come home alive. That's so irresponsible. And Boruto kind of throws it back into Momoshiki's face and he says, like, hey, right now you can't resurrect my body anymore, so what are you even sticking around for? And we get this very good panel where you see Momoshiki's eyes just focus in on Boruto. That's very good. Ikimoto a few years ago would have cut that panel, so I like that that's being shown, and you have Momoshiki putting emphasis on the fact that, like, hey, let me ask you a question. Why are you clinging to your meaningless existence when you know your future is holding nothing but despair? And what I like about this is that Momoshiki follows it up and says, I already warned you, you're gonna lose everything, and that moment is approaching. And when Boruto gets pissed off, we get another shot where it focuses in on Boruto's eyes, and Boruto, in that one panel right there, there's enough emotion there where we don't need to understand what it is that he's feeling, because we can see that fear that's inside of Boruto's eyes as well as the anger. That mixture is very well captured here. And what you see is that Momoshiki says that you're going to fall into despair so great that you're going to lose your will to live. And when this happens, I'm going to take over your body and I will live as Boruto Uzumaki. And we get some important context right here because we're learning more about the Karma Seal, and you're also getting your answer as to why Jigen was able to stay alive even though he was a human monk who got taken over by Isshiki all those thousands of years ago. Well, what you end up seeing is that Momoshiki says, don't worry, the only thing that you need to do is just cower in the corner of your psyche for eternity. I don't have to worry about resurrecting, because if I take over your body, it's the same thing. I'm gonna live for eternity. So what you're seeing right here is what Amado said and what I've been saying for the last 4 or 5 chapters now, which is the fact that yes, Boruto can't have Momoshiki resurrect inside of his body, but he can still hijack his consciousness under the right circumstances. And what Momoshiki is saying is that the next time I take over, if you fall into despair like I think you will, I'm going to package you up, I'm going to put you in the corner of your mind, and I'm going to forever be in control of your body. And the fact that Momoshiki says that possess your body will allow me to live forever, that's very interesting words, because essentially what you're seeing right here is that Momoshiki is saying genetically you're 100% Otsutsuki. Otsutsuki have a long ass lifespan. I'm gonna get everything that I need, regardless as to whether or not I can permanently resurrect and take on my own appearance, or whether or not I have to stay in your appearance until your lifespan's over. But Boruto's lifespan looks like it's been extended. And what I like right here is that it kind of goes back to how Orochimaru's living corpse jutsu works, because when Orochimaru takes over a new body, the last body and all the other previous bodies that he's taken over, those people's consciousness ends up staying packaged up in a corner of Orochimaru's soul. So I like this right here because it adds more credence to the fact that a lot of the jutsu Orochimaru's looked into, they all go back to the Otsutsuki clan. So it really makes you go back to the stuff you saw in the Sasuke Retsen novel, where we find out Orochimaru was looking specifically for Otsutsuki related stuff. It makes you look at this and realize that Orochimaru has been thinking some big brain stuff for a while. Now, in the moment after this, that's when Boruto ends up getting stopped by Sarada and Mitsuki, and they've shown up because they're going to the Hokage office for their mission. And Boruto just starts screaming and says, I'm going to decide my own fate. Who are you to tell me how my life's going to end up? And Sarada completely misreads the whole situation, because she's like, man, you're super pumped up. This is so out of character. You're saying my line. And when she says that, that's great expressive art right there. I have to say this right now. I know that Ikimoto said in the past that he's not very good at capturing comedy, and what you're seeing with Sarada's expression is more so akin to what you would see in Naruto's manga when Kishimoto would use those Sukenbo humor moments, even when it's not necessarily Sukenbo humor, those exaggerated gag expressions where you got Sarada with the mouth open and the angle's done in a way to where you can't see her eyes, because again, Ikimoto's weakness by his own admission is he's not good at drawing eyes, and he's really not good at drawing comedy, but you have exceptions like chapter 69 where that was well done. Capturing it from this angle covers up that weakness while also conveying the same emotion right there. So I thought that was nice. That's another thing. Since Kishimoto's taken over as a writer, you've seen more of those humor elements being weaved in. That's a humor element right there. So I like seeing that. And I like how Mitsuki basically says, like, even if he dies and comes back, or if he becomes an Otsutsuki, Boruto's always going to be Boruto. That's foreshadowing right there. I'm not sure where they're going to take this, but that's foreshadowing. Now, the scene then shifts back over to Himawari, and she basically tells Hinata, if I become a ninja and if I can help out Boruto, is that gonna make you worry even more? So I like how this is like a little wink wink nod nod to the anime, because in the anime right now, Himawari's at the academy undergoing the whole ninja training. So I think that that's very nice right there. Now, the next thing that we see is that Boruto looks down at his karma seal. He's being followed by Mitsuki and Sarada, and he says, I'm not gonna allow you to do as you please. And he's talking to Momoshiki, and I like that what we're getting here is that we have full context. Boruto did not just abandon the village. He's going straight for the Hokage office. So we can kill all that noise that Boruto left the village, though I do think that there's enough there for us to talk about will Boruto leave the village in the future. Now, the scene then shifts over to the Ten Tails dimension where Isshiki has all those Otsutsuki markers, and what we find out is that Code had placed a marker in that dimension during the times when Jigen would take him to the Ten Tails dimensions in the past. And I've got to go back and check, but one of my patrons hit me up and told me that you can actually see Code's claw mark markers in chapter 35. So if you spotted that, good observation, because I totally missed that. Now, what you also see right here is that Code begins talking and says that this is a dimension you can only get to via space-time ninjutsu, but see, I'm the exception because I got claw marks here that I placed when Jigen brought me here. And he tells Bug, when Bug starts talking about, oh, this is the Ten Tails and you're gonna feed Boruto to it, what are we doing right here? Code says that Sasuke can't come here anymore because he doesn't have the Rinnegan, but Boruto and Kawaki are full of Otsutsuki now. They might master space-time ninjutsu before long. Then this place will no longer be secure. Now, this is interesting. I don't know if this is a translation error or not, but it's referring to Kawaki as full of Otsutsuki. Last we checked, Kawaki was at 80%. So if Kawaki's karma seal continued to extract, that is interesting, but it makes sense because Kawaki was wielding all of Isshiki's power. That is interesting. If Amado gave him karma and that karma extracted all of Isshiki's power into that karma seal, that means that Kawaki's genetics have been upgraded to 100% Otsutsuki as well. That's interesting. That makes sense because, again, Boruto and Kawaki, their karmas, they tend to resonate. Boruto's now at 100%, so that makes sense right there. Now, the next thing we see is that Code begins talking. He says, like, man, J-Man was so strong, it was unexpected. I was completely outclassed by him. I stood no chance. And what you end up seeing is that Bug tells Code, I tried to warn you. I told you don't wake this kid up. You never listened to me. And Code goes on about his aching, breaking heart about Ada. And he then goes on to say, I'm going to adjust the Ten Tails. We came here for a reason. Things are starting to get crazy, and because of this, I'm going to adjust the Ten Tails and make it into a more manageable size. Code then begins to start shooting off his claw marks, and he reveals that previously when he had his limiters, he wasn't able to use but only so many claw marks, but because he's got his limiters taken off and he has full access to his chakra, he can essentially make limitless amounts of claw marks, because he says that the restored me can create enough to completely enwrap this behemoth, which was a previously impossible feat. So what Code does is Code, via his claw marks, begins to start breaking up the Ten Tails. And this is interesting, and it makes me wonder something about Isshiki, because Code has Ishiki's chakra in that karma seal. He just can't be used for resurrection purposes. Well, what's interesting about this is Code says Biju by nature are just a giant lump of chakra, so I'm just splitting them up into pieces like molding clay. We were previously told the only way that you can break up a Ten Tails is if you can use the creation of all things jutsu, which requires 6 paths chakra. That now brings up a question. Is this something that anybody who has Otsutsuki chakra, whether it be their vessels, people like Kawaki, Boruto, and Code who have the Otsutsuki karma seals, and those karma seals have the chakra inside of them, can they use this? This is interesting because if they've got access to creation of all things jutsu, that means that we've not seen these characters at their full power yet. Now, the next thing we end up seeing is that Code begins forming these Ten Tails, and they look like a mixture of Jigen's facial structure with Frieza from Dragon Ball, in particular when you look at the center where it's got that black claw mark studs on it, and it also looks like Sukuna's finger bearers from Jujutsu Kaisen. You see a few things, and you also see some JoJo references in here. Now, I know Ikimoto likes to reference other manga when he starts drawing. This one's like a fusion of a few different manga. I'm looking at 5 different manga just off this one design, but what we end up seeing is that these claw marks that are on each of these Ten Tails soldiers that he creates, those Ten Tails soldiers can use Code's claw mark jutsu, and what we end up seeing is that Code is able to connect his eyes via those claw marks. and he's able to control them. So my question is going to be, are we in a situation like Kabuto, where when Kabuto first used Edo Tensei in the anime version, he didn't have full control? I'm wondering if Code is making a similar mistake right there, but essentially he's broken up the Ten Tails to essentially make it easier to control them and make them more useful. So the chapter ends off with Code essentially creating a Ten Tails army, and it looks like he's going to Konoha next. So my chapter question to you guys is, how do you guys feel about Code making a Ten Tails army? And then the second question I have for you guys is, what do you guys think now that you have full context behind Boruto rushing off? Do you think that this is setting the stage for Boruto to eventually leave the village? And if Boruto and Team 7 end up going up against these Ten Tails, do you think that these Ten Tails are going to be ranging in strength? But while you think that over, everybody click here for my Black Clover chapter 334 review, and click here for this throwback video on the channel.